My wife and I have a 3-year-old son, and we'd like him to have a sibling. We went through so much to conceive him: sperm donors, needles, hormones, and 18 embryos in IVF attempts. So I know trying for another child isn't going to be easy. Who knew I would grow up to become not only a lesbian, but also really fucking infertile? I've waited so long and been through so much, but I tell myself it will all be worth it in the end. We're ready for another baby. The doctor recommends we transfer 2 embryos into the womb. Given our difficult conception history, she thinks it's best we try with both. This is a hard decision because I've just given a dear friend my solemn promise that we will only transfer 1 embryo. About a week ago, my friend, let's call her Molly, 22 weeks pregnant with twin girls, was rushed to the hospital after her water broke. The doctor says the babies likely won't survive, and there's a chance of Molly developing a serious infection. They offer her the option of terminating the pregnancy. I can't, she says. I can still feel them moving. Molly spends a week monitored in the hospital before she goes into septic shock and almost dies. The babies are born. Only one of them ever breathes on her own. The other baby survives 9 days in the NICU. My wife and I visit her in the hospital. Molly's baby is pink, her translucent skin revealing webs of blue veins. Her chest flutters like paper on the ventilator that's keeping her alive. She dies in Molly's arms. I make Thai seafood soup that afternoon and bring it to Molly in her wife's apartment. I remembered how in the year of magical thinking, Joan Didion talks about hot broth being the only thing she could eat in the days following her husband's death. She's sitting in the bedroom in the dark and has been crying all day. I hug her, but I feel so inadequate. Through her grief, somehow, Molly remembers our embryos. And before I leave, she asks how many will be transferring. I swear to her, we'll only transfer 1. Which is why my wife and I agree in that doctor's room that if both embryos attach, we will reduce to only 1 through a selective reduction. A selective reduction is basically an abortion. There's a baby that you can't have, so a doctor stops it. The main difference is that there's also another baby that you can have, and you have to preserve it and give it space to grow. There's a small chance that you'll lose the whole pregnancy. But we don't have any more embryos and only 1 more vial of sperm. If we lose this whole pregnancy, there's a good chance there won't be another. So we don't make the decision lightly. I ask the doctor if she knows someone who will do the reduction in case we need it. Yes, we send all our patients over to Mount Sinai, my doctor says. So I move forward with the procedure. 2 weeks later, I pee into a clear plastic cup and finally see those 2 pink lines appear, like strokes of magic ink. At 5 weeks pregnant, I go in for my first ultrasound because I'm bleeding. How many did we put back in there? The doctor asks, looking up at the screen. I didn't need to look. I knew what was there. I call my wife and tell her we're not having a miscarriage. We're having twins. My stomach roils. I lay in bed and weep. Why am I so sad? So many women I know have had abortions. I believe in reproductive freedom. I was in the 4th grade the first time I went to a rally for choice. There was a ballot measure under consideration in Oregon that would require teenagers to obtain parental consent for an abortion. My mother, an obstetrician, was one of the speakers. I stood there and heard her say to the crowd, "I have a daughter, and I hope she'd tell me if she were pregnant, but it is her choice to make." I grew up hearing my mother's stories about her patients' struggles and triumphs, learning about women who faced down death and emerged with a healthy infant. My mother bore witness to these women's stories. I wanted a story of my own, to be a hero like these women my mother helped. But 2 heartbeats, I want both of those precious babies. I really do. But I can't have them both at once. Selective reduction has always been our backup plan. So why does my body feel twisted with grief? I feel so reckless to have taken this stupid risk. In an effort to reorient myself and get a bit of perspective, I watched the documentary How to Survive a Plague about the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. I remind myself that things could be much worse. My own queer ancestors survived so much to bring me to this day and age where married dykes have whole practices full of reproductive endocrinologists at our disposal. But the movie ends and I start crying again. I remember all those months of trying and feeling like I wasn't meant to be a mother, to be one of those heroic stories my mom told from my childhood. I call to make an appointment for the reduction with the Mount Sinai doctors. But this is an American abortion story, and they don't take my health insurance. I take to Google to find the right doctor for the procedure. Because of the risks involved, I know I don't need a competent doctor. I need a world-class fucking expert. I find one who knows what he's doing and takes my insurance. A kind, matronly sounding receptionist returns my call. "How many babies are you carrying, dear?" "2, I respond. "I'm so sorry. The doctor doesn't do twins anymore." "7, I have read, is how many times riskier it is to have twins than a singleton pregnancy. 13 is how many times riskier it is to carry triplets. I drew my line before 7, but the doctor drew his line at 13. I'm 10 weeks pregnant when I go in for the last ultrasound with the reproductive endocrinologist and find out that I've miscarried one of the babies. "See, your body knew what to do," he says. I think of Molly and luck and how terribly unfair it all is. Deux ex machina. The 3rd act ends abruptly. My relief is a shock. 0 is the number of times I have told this story. It'd be so easy to keep this all a secret, to pretend I never knew I was carrying twins in the first place. But I make a promise to myself to tell my children about this someday. I want them to know anyone can need an abortion. Anyone, even your lesbian mother, neck deep in IVF debt, desperate for another baby.
Woo!